They rule the world. I don't know why we even have politicians. Just put cats in charge.
I thought they were in charge.
But how does the joke go? A dog sees the humans. We bring them food, we give them water, take them on walks, we play with them. We must be gods. The cat sees the humans that we give them food, we play with them, we interact with them, all of that. The cat thinks, I must be a god.
Indeed.
Hey y'all, we're streaming to YouTube now.
Hello.
But my cat seems to be convinced, or my parents' cat seems to be convinced that we absolutely love it when she lays at the on the very first step of the stairs, and she tries to kill us.
Ian, they're oblivious to safety issues. They're oblivious.
Oh yeah, I could be walking around just carrying a bunch of stuff, and she's leaving it out of my feet, and
Yeah.
And I'll do the weirdest dances to try and not step on her or kick her. And
Well, that was the cat report that he sent back to the cat planet, that they're trying to take over the humans by tripping them up, going in and out of their feet.
Oh. Well, they're doing a very good job, Dane.
well, they certainly did a good job of making us their slaves.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
I also just want to say that it's a great, animals and cats in particular, I mean all animals, but I love my cat, are such a great reminder of how much joy and goodness everyone brings into the world or could bring into the world. You don't need a job, you don't have to pay rent, you can be a little bratty, and still make the world so much better just by existing. And if that is true of a tiny little furry creature, all the more reason, all the more true of us who can talk and decide to do things and intentionally create good in different ways. Shana Tova B'nai, Shana Tova Barb and Mel, and Sam.
Hi, Barry. Hi,
Debbie.
Gail.
And Gail. My Schneidermans can't hear us yet. Their audios. Hi, Sam.
Oh my gosh, Rabbi, hi. Rabbi, I forgot to tell you about Sam. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Good Yontif.
Good Yantif.
Yom Tov. Shana Tova, Kim and David.
Hi, Kim. Oh my gosh, Sam.
Use the shut the box.
Sam, where are you? Are you in Washington?
Yes, I am. I actually just got back from my hill out called Nidre, but Mom sent me the link, so I thought I'd make an appearance. I think this is going to be a much better service anyway.
Hey, where's your mom?
That's a good
It's out
question.
there somewhere.
That's a very good question.
Yes.
But I think we're gonna need to reboot.
It's one of the awesome things about all of these virtual things is you can go to so many places. It's amazing. It is so good to be together, even in cyberland. We're creating community and creating togetherness. Almost 7. Now it's 6:59. Shana Tova. How good it is, and how bittersweet it is to be celebrating and creating and commemorating Yom Kippur, this day of atonement, together here in cyberspace. Each of us is in a different physical location from one another. Some of us are on Zoom, some of us are on YouTube, and yet here we are, joining together with ourselves, with Jews and people who care about Judaism all over the world. People have gathered before us, different time zones. People will continue to gather as the evening progresses and all of tomorrow in all sorts of different ways. We welcome renewal. We welcome ourselves. We welcome the essence of this holiday, this time of atonement, of becoming. And so as we begin this time together, as we create Yom Kippur, I invite us all, us each, to breathe ourselves, into gentleness, into acceptance, to welcome all of our past deeds and our past selves into this holy space we are creating, to welcome the questions and the answers, the surprise, the tears, the joy, the shame, the becoming. We welcome all of ourselves to this space, to this time of atonement, to this space of acceptance and becoming. We begin this time with a reminder that the truth of the high holidays is all about returning ourselves, to the goodness at our core, the goodness at the core of our worlds, at the core of all healthy relationships, as we begin with Hashivenu.
Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, v'nashuva, Chodesh, Chodesh, Yameinu kekedem.
Please rise as we begin our service on page 247. If you feel so moved and so able, please rise. O God of the universe, O Sacred One, in awe and in humility, I have come to stand before you, to pray with your people Israel and on their behalf. Who is fit for such a task? Yet you are present to us whenever our voices rise in praise. In your great mercy, have compassion on me and on us all. Let my congregation not falter on my account, nor I on theirs. Guide the lips of those who lead your people in worship. Strengthen our faith and purify our thoughts, and let your love draw a veil over all our failings, So may our prayers ascend this day to the throne of your glory, to the throne of all that is sacred. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. It is now my great honor to invite Leah Rackless and Carly Jo Spirio to the virtual Bima to lead us in kindling our festive lights in saying, now it is time for Yom Kippur. Now we are beginning the sacred space together. Page 247.
You ready? Baruch. Go ahead.
I can't.
Give me help.
Okay, I think I gotta start. Northbrook doesn't work for me.
I'm pleased to say that my daughter doesn't know how to light matches, which is good. I do this.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Yom Kippurim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen.
Page 249. Once more, Atonement Day has come, all pretense gone, naked heart revealed to the hiding self. We stand on holy ground, between the day that was and the day that must be. We tremble. At what did we aim? How did we stumble? What did we take? What did we give? To what were we blind? Last year's confession came easily to the lips. Will this year's come from deeper than the skin? Say then, why are our paths strewn with promises like fallen leaves? Say then, when shall our lust be for wisdom? Say now, love and truth shall meet, justice and peace shall embrace. O hope of Israel, in our weakness give us strength. In our blindness be our guide. When we falter, hold our hand. Make consistent our impulse for good. Let us know the joy of walking in your ways. For transgressions against God, the Day of Atonement atones. But for transgressions of one human against another, the Day of Atonement does not atone until they have made peace with one another. We come now to one of our most important prayers, a prayer that in fact, it was so popular that we named the entire service after this prayer, Kol Nidre, a prayer that reminds us that nobody is perfect. Nobody. We set our goals really high. We have really high standards for ourselves, and we do our best every year to do everything we can to fulfill all of the promises. And we also know that no matter what, no matter how hard we try, we're human. We will never get 1,000% of the things we wanted to accomplish done, because as soon as you finish one thing, then there's another and another and another. And so we begin Kol Nidre, we begin Yom Kippur, looking into the year ahead, making a promise as a community to try our best, to live out our values, to really do everything we can to be the people, the individuals, and the community that we wish to be, that we would be so proud to be. And we also know that we're on this journey together with everybody else. We'll do our best. And when we don't quite get there, we'll own our mistakes. We'll own that we didn't quite get there. We'll ask for help, and we will work together. If you feel so moved and so able, I invite you to rise for Kol Nidre on page 252. So it is traditional to recite Kol Nidre 3 times. That's how you know it's super important, because you got to do it a bunch of times. So we will read it once in the English. We will have an instrumental version, and we will also be led by the super fabulous Miriam Roth through Chazanut as well. So we are on page 252. Let all vows and oaths, all the promises we make and the obligations we incur to you, O God, between this Yom Kippur and the next, be null and void, should we, after honest effort, find ourselves unable to fulfill them, then may we be absolved of them.
Okay. Okay, Wendy, I need to be able to screen share. It's not coming up. There it is.
Vesarei, Vecharamei, Vekonamei, Vechinuyei, Vechinusei, Ushavut. Din darna, udish tabana, udaharimna. Vedasarna Alnashatana Miyom Kippurim Zeh Yom Kippurim Haba Aleinu L'tova Kulhon Lecharat Navehon Kulhon Yahon Shiran Shvikin Shevitin Betelin Umvutalin Lashiririn Vela Kayamin Nidrana La Nidre Besarana La Sare Ushavuatana
We remain standing if you feel like it as we continue to call ourselves, to our values, and to all that we hold most sacred as we continue with the Baruch, the call to prayer, on page 253. Please be seated. Page 254. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives. Then you live within our hearts. And we, through righteousness, behold your presence. And now we invite oneness into our midst. We engage with the oneness within ourselves, within our God, within all that we hold sacred, within our communities. I invite you to stand or to sit or to be however you can feel that oneness most fully. As we continue with the Shema, on page 255.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto,
Please be seated if you're standing. It is now my great honor to invite Noah and Barry Schneiderman to the virtual bima to lead us in the Ve'ahavta.
You shall love the world with all your thoughts, with all your feelings, and with all your actions. Feel this teaching deep in your heart so that what you say and what you do become examples of love. When you lie down and when you rise up, remember how special you are. No one can take your place in this world. When you go out and when you come home, remember how special everyone else is. No one can take the place of anyone in this world. Look deeply into things so you see the good as well as the bad, and the bad as well as the good. Put a mezuzah on your door and on your gate to remind you to be kind and good and to remind you of all you have learned.
As we get ready for the Micha Mocha, our thoughts turn to our past year, to our actions. We ask ourselves, how have I promoted freedom? How have I engaged with freedom? How have I helped myself feel more free? And when was that at the detriment to others? When was it for the good of everybody? What places in my life make me feel trapped? And what can I do to help create a little bit of space there? We continue with the Micha Mocha on page 257.
Micha mocha ba'alim Adonai, Micha mocha nedar ba'kodesh, Nora tehilot osef ele, malchutcha, ra'u vanecha, v'keyayom lifnei Moshe, Zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed.
And now, surrounded by our prayers, by our tradition, by our community, we come to the part of our service where we literally stand in front of ourselves, in front of all that we hold most sacred. And we ask ourselves, what matters? What have I done in the past year that I'm proud of? What does my sacred tradition mean to me, to my family, to the generations who came before me, to the generations who will come after me? What do I want to make my tradition mean? We remind ourselves of all this and more, of our commitment to life and to memory, to becoming. as we continue with the Amidah, beginning on page 260. If you feel so moved and so able, I invite you to rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yagi tehillatcha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, v'Elohei Rivka, v'Elohei Rachel v'Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'konei Hakol V'zocher Chasei Avot V'imahot U'mevii Gula Livnei V'neihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Zochreinu l'chaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chodeinu b'sefer ha'chaim, lamancha Elohim chaim. Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav l'choshia. Mechalkel Chaim b'chesed, Mechayech hakol b'rachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofeh cholim, U'matir asurim. U'mekayem emunato Lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot u'midom elach. Melech me'imit u'mechayeh u'matmiach Yeshua. Michamocha Ahav harachamim, Zocher Yitzurav, L'chaim berachamim, V'ne'eman atah l'chachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol.
Great is the eternal power at the heart of life, mighty the love that is stronger than death. Faithful love gives life to all, and acts of grace restore our strength. Life's harsh winds uproot the weak, its hard rains beat down upon our kin. Let those who stand support the falling, keep faith with those who lie in the dust. To the sick we must bring healing, to those who are bound, release. How good to redeem the ancient pledge, for joy to blossom in arid soil. We give thanks for the power to live and to act, for the blessing of love that is stronger than death. Please be seated. We continue together on page 265. O source of mercy, give us the grace to show forbearance to those who offend against us. When the wrongs and injustices of others wound us, may our hearts not despair of human good. May no trial, however severe, embitter our souls and destroy our trust. When beset by trouble and sorrow, our ancestors put the armor of faith and fortitude. May we too find strength to meet adversity with quiet courage and unshaken will. Help us to understand that injustice and hate will not forever afflict the human race, that righteousness and mercy will triumph in the end. Sanctify us with your mitzvot and bring us near to your service, that we may be worthy to proclaim your truth to all the world. Satisfy us with your goodness and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts that we may serve you in truth. For you, O God, are truth, and your words endure forever. Blessed is Adonai, who sanctifies Israel and the Day of Atonement. We continue now welcoming our deepest desires. We ask ourselves, what do I want from myself in the coming year? What do I want from my loved ones? What do I want from my world? For my God? What are my deepest hopes? The dreams too scary to speak aloud, perhaps. What really matters? We continue with Retzeh on page 266.
Retzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel Utehi leratzon Tamid avodat Yisrael Yisrael Amecha El Karov Lechol Korav Penei Lavadecha Vechonenu Shefoch Ruchacha Aleinu V'techez enai leinu B'shuvecha l'Tzion Barachamim Baruch atah Adonai Amachazir Shechinato L'Tzion
It is now my great honor to invite Ryan Porras to the virtual Bima to lead us in prayer on page 267.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all peoples of the earth. Bless our country, that it may always be a stronghold of peace and its advocate among the nations. Make contentment reign within its borders, health and happiness within its homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship among the inhabitants of all lands, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Teach us, O Lord, to labor for righteousness, and inscribe us in the book of life, blessing and peace. Blessed is the eternal God, the source of peace.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. בספר חיים ברכה ושלום, ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה, ברכה ושלום, ניזכר וניכתב לפניך. אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ולשלום. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
It's pretty perfect that a prayer for peace has the sounds of animals in the background. I don't know what's more right with the world than animals and children and all the kinds of beings laughing and being themselves wherever we are. We continue now with the most important prayer of all, the prayer that lives within each and every one of us.
My bad. Oh, say shalom, shalom, shalom. Bimramav huya, say shalom aleinu. Oh, say shalom, shalom, shalom. Bimramav huya, say shalom aleinu.
So the heart of Yom Kippur is about owning our transgressions, about doing everything we can to deal with the ramifications of our actions from this past year, to think about them, to understand why we did them, and to create new structures for the coming year to make it that much harder for us to do those same bad things again and again and again. And so we ask ourselves, what does it mean to really own our wrongdoings? Think about your past year and something you're not so proud of. What would it mean to truly repent? And how will you make different choices in the future when you find yourself in a similar situation? And how will you be kind to yourself when you keep berating yourself over and over and over again for mistakes and transgressions long accounted for? We welcome all of our misdeeds. We take accountability for the things each of us did as individuals and as a collective, as a community. All of Vidui, all of our confession is in the Anachnu, in the we form, to give us space to ask ourselves, how have I participated in this? And also to remind ourselves that we all share the same world. We are not all equally responsible for the wrongdoings, but we all let certain things happen and contribute to that by just letting it be. And on Yom Kippur, we take responsibility on every level as we attempt to build a better world and are honest about the past. If you feel so moved and so able, I invite you to rise as we begin the Vidui on page 269. Our God and God of our ancestors, grant that our prayers may reach you. Do not refuse to listen to our pleas, for we are not so arrogant or so stiff-necked as to say before you, Adonai, our God and God of all ages, we are perfect and have not sinned. Rather do we confess, we have gone astray, we have sinned, we have transgressed. Please be seated.
I die 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 da da die 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 ya da da die 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 Hashamnu Baganu Gazalnu Dibarnu Dofi I Avinu Vehirshanu Zadnu Hamasnu Tafalnu Shaker Yatsnura Kizavnu Latsnu Maradnu Niatsnu Sararnu Avinu Pashanu Zatararnu Kishinu Orav ay, 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 ay. Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu. Ay, 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 ay.
We all have committed offenses. Together we confess these human sins, the sins of arrogance, bigotry, and cynicism, of deceit and egotism, flattery and greed, injustice and jealousy. Some of us kept grudges, were lustful, malicious, or narrow-minded. Others were obstinate or possessive, quarrelsome, rancorous, or selfish. There was violence, weakness of will, xenophobia. We yielded to temptation and showed zeal for bad causes. Now may it be your will, O God and God of all generations, to forgive all our sins, to pardon all our wrongdoings, and to blot out our transgressions. The sin we have committed against you under duress or by choice, the sin we have committed against you consciously or unconsciously, and the sin we have committed against you openly or secretly, the sin we have committed against you in our thoughts, the sin we have committed against you with our words, and the sin we have committed against you by the abuse of power. For all these, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
Ve'al kulam elo aslichot, salach lanu mechalanu, kaper lanu. Slach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu.
For the sin we have committed against you by hardening our hearts, the sin we have committed against you by profaning your name, and the sin we have committed against you by disrespect for parents and teachers, the sin we have committed against you by speaking slander, the sin we have committed against you by dishonesty in our work, and the sin we have committed against you by hurting others in any way. For all these, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
Ve'al kulam elo aslichot, salach lanu mechalanu, kaper lanu. Salach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu.
We continue silently welcoming and apologizing and owning all of our transgressions from this past year as we continue in our prayer books or with ourselves in silence, and we'll resume together on page 276. Who among us is righteous enough to say, I have not sinned? Born of love to love, we grow weary, heavy with regret, sorry for ourselves, and afraid to know what might have been. We have sinned against you, O God, and against each other. Look now to the cities, see the broken streets, poor and decayed, and all afraid. See them and ask, what have we done? Help us to turn, O God, help us to find forgiveness. Behold water and air and soil and sea. Still we beat plowshares into swords and make spears out of pruning hooks. Disfigured lies the human form divine, estranged from its center. Your iniquities have separated you from your God. Vision fades as the presence recedes. The voice grows still. The search for God is over and gone. We are all alone, our meaning unremembered. Help us to turn, O God, help us to find ourselves. Help us to learn where to seek you. Here now on Atonement Day, we need not be alone with our failings. Let us recall together blessed moments when clouds parted and the sun appeared. We looked, we saw. There was healing and the hope of joy. We were at peace and knew the joy of hope. O God, turn us to the heights where human goodness finds its dwelling. Lead us to your holy mountain, your hand stretched forth in welcome to help us on the way. Help us on our way, O God. Lead us on our path. Throughout our high holidays, we repeat the prayer Avinu Malkeinu, reminding ourselves of the dual nature of the divine or God or the sacred, of a powerful ruler, a king or sovereign or queen, someone far away who could change everything. And also a loving parent who's closer and also has a huge amount of influence and can change a lot. We engage with this twofold nature of ourselves, of our world, of our God, as we continue with Avinu Malkeinu on page 280. Please rise if you feel so moved and so able.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu, V'alol Aleinu, V'tapeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Dever, V'cherev Rav, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Tsar, Umastin, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu, Besefer Chaim Tovim, Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova, Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, hear our prayer. Imenu Malkatnu, let the gates of heaven be opened to our pleas for a better world. Avinu Malkatnu, help us to work for racial justice and equality. Imenu Malkeinu, let us find pardon for our wrongdoings. Avinu Malkeinu, let us inscribe ourselves for blessing in the book of life. Imenu Malkatnu, show us how to embrace our whole selves. Avinu Malkatnu, help us to create a world where all people can be our true selves. Imenu Malkeinu, teach us how to fix our broken world. Avinu Malkeinu, teach us how to learn from our fears and from our mistakes. Imenu Malkatnu, be mindful of us and help us. Avinu Malkatnu, let us inscribe ourselves for blessing in the book of forgiveness. Imenu Malkeinu, be gracious and answer us, for our actions have been flawed. Avinu Malkeinu, grant us justice and loving kindness, and help us bring about salvation for ourselves and for the whole world. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. So my Jewish grandfather, my mom's dad, Hoppy, has been making fun of me for being interested in, quote, metaphysics ever since I was in middle school. He is hilarious and amazing and a huge part of why I am the kind of rabbi that I am. For his entire 95 years of existence, he likes to say he's 95, even though that's the next upcoming birthday, so we'll give it to him. For his entire life, he has always been an active member of the Reformed Jewish community and has always loved to complain about it. Just like any good Reformed Jew, he and all of his friends have the same temple that they never go to, and yet they're always up on exactly the things that are happening and always want to make sure that there are more social justice opportunities. because he likes to ask me, how could you ever believe in all of this nonsense when the Bible is advocating to treat people this way? Isn't the whole point of religion to help poor people, to help people at the margins? I just don't get it. Poppy was in his early 20s when World War II ended. He did not fight in the actual fighting during World War II, but he was there for the aftermath. He saw the destruction and the desolation, the despair, the starvation, and he never forgot. He often tells us of how when he got there, the only people left in the camps were women. Women who had nowhere to go, who were bloated or emaciated, and who would call out to him and reach through the gates and say, just marry me, and take me away, take me to the United States, and you'll never see me again. Don't worry, just take me away from here. And my grandfather, who was not my grandfather yet, couldn't do anything. His job was to document, to dig graves, to interview soldiers, to make sure that people, when he came home, would know that this really happened, that the world really could do unimaginably terrible things to other people. It's a period of his life that he never forgot, that he often returns to when things in the here and now don't make sense and are so heartbreaking. Often we'll watch the news together and he'll turn to me and say, you know, when I was interviewing those Nazis after it was all over, quote unquote, the worst part is that they would say that they were helping people. They thought they were the good guys. They had convinced themselves of this whole other reality. How could people do that? And yet Poppy has also spent his entire life trying to build more good, to try and help some of that brokenness. When he first came back from Europe as a university student, he and many other students went all across to college campuses to talk about what they saw, to advocate for world government and the creation of the United Nations. Of course, a flawed institution, but they were advocating for accountability, for never again, for building a world where this is not possible, where genocide doesn't keep repeating itself over and over and over to different groups and different peoples within our same lifetime. We want to believe in a better world, in the fundamental goodness of the world, of ourselves, of one another. And when that belief in goodness is ruptured, it can cause moral injury. When we witness something awful and feel like we should have done something, or simply that it never should have happened. When we did the awful thing ourselves, or it was done to us or happened to us. When institutions or people we believed in either do great harm or allow great harm, we often suffer moral injury, a shattering of our belief and our trust in goodness. Moral injury ends up looking a lot like complex PTSD. It's shame-based and fear-based. It can make it harder to eat, harder to sleep, or to sleep a lot more and eat a lot more. It can cause nightmares and panic, depression, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, shorter tempers, and large emotional reactions to things that didn't used to have those kinds of reactions. And because moral injury goes so deep and is so all-encompassing, by definition, it also takes a long time and an all-encompassing rebuilding to journey towards healing. This past June, I attended an online conference on moral injury and soul repair, hosted by my alma mater, HUC. The conference ended up being super cool on a lot of levels. And on the first day of the conference, we talked about moral injury and what it means, how it functions, what it looks like, what the symptoms are. Different service professionals, rabbis, chaplains, therapists, shared about moral injury they had witnessed or helped their clients heal from. A hospital chaplain spoke about the moral injury of having to triage life-saving care, of talking to nurses and physicians about who to choose to just not treat if the time had to come to that. A military chaplain spoke about a cadet's moral injury when they realized that they had to fly even though they were told, don't fly if you're not feeling up to it emotionally. But after day 2 or day 3 of not feeling up to it emotionally, the no was no longer okay. A rabbi spoke about the heartbreak and moral injury of the occupation perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinian people and how she came to see it. Another rabbi, the head of the Women's Rabbinic Network, spoke about the moral injury and betrayal of being ordained by someone who regularly sexually harassed and propositioned female students while dean of Hebrew Union College. I had not heard the whole story before, though I had heard pieces of it when I was a student. This is the Reform Seminary, the one place you go to become a Reform rabbi, an American Reform rabbi. There are a few places, other places in the world. And the president is the person who ordains everybody. They're the one person who gets the final say over, is this person going to be a rabbi or not? We have a, quote, unbroken chain of tradition. It is broken. From Moses all the way down to rabbis here and now, everyone is ordained in a chain of transmission. And the president, whoever the president is at the time, is the head of our chain in the Reform world. Rabbi Zamor, the head of the Women's Rabbinic Network, courageously spoke about the HUC president who ordained her, Dr. Alfred Gottschalk, and how immoral and abusive he was. How everybody knew if you were a woman, don't get in the elevator with Dr. Gottschalk alone. Don't be alone in his office. And yet he was the person ordaining them, making them rabbi. I watched on gallery view as my colleagues wept while Rabbi Zamor spoke. I watched the generations who came before me, who put up with so much so I could be here, standing before you today. Gottschalk was president of HUC from 1971 to 96, ordaining all of the first generation of women rabbis. I was always taught in school that it was thanks to him that Rabbi Sally Priesand was even ordained in 1972. She was admitted under the we'll probably ordain you, we'll definitely consider it. It's not a no, but not a given. And granted, no one is admitted as a given that you will be ordained. You have to complete various kinds of things. And yet she was admitted as maybe you'll complete everything your male classmates do and we'll ordain you, maybe we won't. You should gamble on that. And thank goodness she did. But Gottschalk fought for the ordination of women. He helped make this happen, which is really, really gross on a lot of levels, even though I'm really, really glad that women have been ordained since 1972. Rabbi Zamor told us how she felt about her ordination so many years later, how there were so many mixed emotions, how it felt so yucky, and so many women rabbis felt similarly, that they created their own ordination ritual of mutual ordination years after they were ordained, creating new rituals to acknowledge and right the wrongs of the past, to own and embrace the bittersweetness and the lessons that come from it, to repair the soul. Soul repair is a long and a deep process. It requires rebuilding and building entirely new systems of belief and accountability. It means restructuring. It means creating a healthy ritual that speaks to the world and to the selves that we are building. We are building and rebuilding our trust in ourselves, in the entire world. Our trust in God or in the sacred, if that is meaningful to us. That's a lot. A lot. And it takes time and embracing the journey. Rabbi Zamor ended her remarks by thanking HUC for inviting her to speak at the conference, knowing full well what she would say. I too am proud of HUC for welcoming the telling of these painful truths at the heart of our movement. I am proud of the Union for Reform Judaism, the CCAR, our central body of American rabbis, and HUC for all engaging in independent investigations into abuse and coercions of the past. As awful as it is that these things happened and our movement looked the other way then, I am proud that we are making different choices now, that we are taking moral injury seriously. By shedding light on the transgressions of the past, we can build a better future. Poppy often talks about that time in his early 20s that doesn't make any sense. How could humans be so awful to each other and do it with such conviction? How could we not have learned as a world and moved past this? He doesn't have answers for my questions, but he lives his life as an answer to what we do in the face of unspeakable awfulness. what we do when the world is not as it should be. We appreciate the little things, the feeling of sunlight, a moment of joy, a smile, the wonder of our bodies, a good book or piece of music, favorite smell. The little things add up and are not so little at all, especially when it comes to rebuilding our sense of goodness in the world. And of course, whenever we can, we make the world a better place. We do whatever we can, whenever we can, to help those on the margins, to advocate for change, to listen to those who have not been listened to, and to give them the microphone. May this Yom Kippur remind each of us that goodness is possible, that we can move on and move past our mistakes and our grudges, that we can repair the world and ourselves. We can create a better year and a better world together. Gemar Chatima Tova. May we all inscribe ourselves for blessing in the book of life. Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
Etz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tomecheha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol nativoteha shalom. Ashivenu Adonai Elav nashuva Hadesh Hadesh Yameinu Hadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
Our thoughts now turn to healing. Healing of mind, healing of body, and healing of spirit. We are reminded that according to our tradition, to save one life is to save the whole world. And every time we are near somebody we don't live with, when we are indoors, or if we're super close to them outside, that we can and will all be wearing our masks and wearing it over the nose and the mouth. As uncomfortable as it is, it makes a difference. In every life is the life of the whole world. And I also encourage us each to think of a way or a time or a person we can reach out to let them know they're awesome, they matter, to promote healing in a more ephemeral sense. For all those in need of healing, for ourselves, for our community, for all those we hold in our hearts and our thoughts, we join together with the Misha Berach, our prayer for healing.
Misha Berach Avotenu Makor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema. The renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
As we prepare to pause our service this evening, we never conclude Yom Kippur services until we conclude our very end last service Ne'ilah tomorrow, which we will begin at 4 p.m. on Zoom and on YouTube. So everything will just kinds of keeps going until then. You can continue your Yom Kippur whatever way you need to continue your Yom Kippur. That's part of why it just continues, because we all need different kinds of things. And so as we prepare to reach our pause of our service for this evening, our thoughts turn to responsibility. We ask ourselves, what will I take responsibility for in the coming year? What do I take responsibility from the past year? What am I going to let go of? How do I know the difference in terms of which kinds of things are more important and more appropriate? We continue with the Aleinu on page 282. If you feel so moved and so able, I invite you to rise.
Aleinu l'shabach la'adon ha'kol, la'teit gedula le'otzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר ויהי אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Please be seated. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, from childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then, perhaps, to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. And life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. We welcome the memory of all those who came before us into our midst. those who died recently, those who died many years ago, those who we never got to meet ourselves, but whose memory lives on in each of us. We welcome the fullness of our grief, our joy, our sorrow, all of the feelings. You feel so moved and so able. I invite you to rise as we continue as one community of mourners with the Mourner's Kaddish on page 284. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, v'almad yivrach v'yirtei v'yimlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yom echon, v'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'gala v'zman kari v'yimru. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mebarach le'olam omei omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalel, Shmei dekudesha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata b'shirata, tushbechata b'nachamata, demiran b'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. May their memories always be for a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. As we come to the pause of this evening's service, may we each find gentleness within ourselves, the love and acceptance to accept all of ourselves, all of our wrongdoings, all of our not good enoughness. Help us forgive ourselves. Help us forgive the people in our lives who deserve to be forgiven. Help us to move past this past year and create a new and better year for all of us. Shana Tova, Happy New Year, Gomar Chatima Tova. May we all inscribe ourselves for blessing in the book of life. We will be here tomorrow at 10 a.m. for Zoom/YouTube services. Then we will have a Zoom-only study session at 1 p.m. Then meditative space in the virtual sanctuary on Zoom at 2 p.m., 3 p.m. a Yisker/memorial service, also just on Zoom. 4 p.m. is Ne'ilah, our concluding service, and that will be on YouTube and on Zoom. I look forward to celebrating and creating Yom Kippur with you tomorrow if you are celebrating and creating with us tomorrow, and if not, and also even if you're with us, I hope you have a wonderful and a meaningful Yom Kippur. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everybody.